Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Troilus and Cressida, and we get to hear from Troilus again today in Act 2, Scene 2. Now in Act 2, Scene 2, we're hanging out with the Trojans. We were just recently with the Greeks. Hector had sent a challenge to the Greeks because he's getting bored, saying, send me a champion and we'll fight. The Greeks are going to rig a lottery so that Ajax will be the one to go and fight them. But while they're waiting for that whole fight thing to roll around, Hector and Troilus and a bunch of people are sitting around, Helenas, a bunch of people are sitting around sort of debating whether or not they should end the war right now by giving Helen back to the Greeks, because that seems to be sort of the simplest solution. And Hector's argument is that yes, they should, because too many people have already died for Helen, that they should just give her back and this whole thing can be over. And Troilus is sort of mortified by this, and he's like, no, we can't give her back. And they're like, well, what's your reasoning for that? And he says, well, you know, if we followed reason all the time, then we wouldn't even be at war, so we can't apply reason in situations like this. And they're like, you don't make any sense. And he says, but it's Helen, like we have to keep Helen. And they're like, Hector specifically is like, she's not worth it. She's not worth the price that has already been paid in Trojan lives in order to keep her here. And Troilus is like, but, you know, how do you judge the worth of anything? And Hector's like, you know, things do have inherent value, but if you're only going to esteem something for what it values itself at, then maybe you need to reevaluate sort of the whole thing. And Troilus, to make a point, says, I take today a wife, and my election is led on the conduct of my will enkindled by mine eyes and ears, two traded pilots twixt the dangerous shores of will and judgment. How may I avoid, although my will distaste what it elected, the wife I chose? There can be no evasion to blench from this, and to stand firm by honor. We turn not back the silks upon the merchant when we have spoiled them, nor the remainder viands we do not throw in unrespective same because we are now full. It was thought meet Paris should do some vengeance on the Greeks. Your breath of full consent belied his sails. The seas and winds, old wranglers, took a truce and did him service. He touched the ports desired, and for an old aunt whom the Greeks held captive, he brought an Grecian queen, whose youth and freshness wrinkles Apollo's and makes stale the morning. Why keep we her? The Grecians keep our aunt. Is she worth keeping? Why, she is a pearl, whose price hath launched above 1,000 ships and turned crowned kings to merchants. If you'll avouch, 'twas wisdom Paris went, as you must needs, for you all cried, go, go. If you'll confess, he brought home noble prize, as you must needs, for you all clapped your hands and cried, inestimable. Why do you now the issue of your proper wisdom's rate, and do a deed that fortune never did? Beggar the estimation which you prized, richer than sea and land. Oh, theft most base, that we have stolen what we do fear to keep, but thieves unworthy of a thing so stolen, that in their country did them that disgrace, we fear to warrant in our native place. So he's got a bit more of an argument going on here, and he's like, okay, so the thing about the will versus judgment between eyes and ears, he's like, I see something and I want it even though I'm not supposed to want it. How do I now turn my back on it? He's like, we don't return dirty fabric to the merchant. We don't just throw away our food, the rest of our food, once we're full because we're done with it. Like, we don't do those things. So why would we throw back Helen now? You know, Paris went out, and you all wanted Paris to go out. Paris went out to seek vengeance on the Greeks. He went everywhere that he was supposed to. They were keeping one of us hostage, so he brought back Helen. This is Helen. Troilus thinks that Helen is quite beautiful. Apparently he calls her a pearl in this, but he's like, you know, he brought back Helen, this beautiful, beautiful woman that we've been fighting about for so long, and you all told him to go, and you were all really, really happy when he brought her back here, and now you're telling him to throw her back? What sense does that make? We stole her, and now we're going to give her back? Like, who does that? Nobody does that, is sort of his point. It speaks a little bit to the whole sort of saving face thing that he was talking about earlier, that it's going to destroy the reputation of Troy if Helen is given back. He's just expounding on it a bit more here. And he would continue to do so, but then we start to hear some screaming from outside the door, a woman yelling. She's yelling like, "Cry, Trojans, cry." And they're like, oh my God, it's Cassandra again. It's our Cassandra. And if you know anything about Greek mythology, it's that Cassandra, the woman who's destined to know the future but always be misbelieved when she tries to share it. So Cassandra comes in, they're like, what's wrong now? And she's like, this is terrible, this is horrible. Paris is gonna burn down Troy, we're all gonna die, sort of a thing. And then she runs off. And then we'll pick up tomorrow, because that's a good place to stop for today. Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.